Have you been injured or hurt on someone else's property? Well, if so, you may be a victim of premises liability. It's hard to know what to do, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Premises liability with our good friends from Tate Law Group. Joining me right now is attorney Jim Shipley. Hi, Jim. How are you?
Hey, Natalie. I'm well. Thank you.
Let's talk about premises liability. First, for some of our viewers who may not be familiar with premises liability, what exactly is it?
Premise liability is a term that lawyers use, but it is essentially, it's when someone is injured on the premise of another person. And a premise could be, it's either someone's home, maybe at a business, anything that another person owns and has the duty to maintain in a safe condition.
And this happens a lot. I mean, probably more than people pick up the phone and call and ask, am I a victim of premises liability? It happens a lot.
It does. It occurs a lot here and all over the country. And a lot of times people don't understand that they do in fact have a claim, again, often if they're injured, against the owners of the premise where they are hurt.
So how do I know? Let's just say I may think that I am a victim of premises liability. What are some things that I should ask myself? How do I know if I'm a victim of premises liability?
Well, I think one of the first things you can do is call a lawyer. And here at Tate Law Group, we are very experienced in handling these premise liability claims. Because, you know, not being a lawyer, you don't exactly know whether or not you do have a case. If you call, you're going to have the opportunity to speak, you know, with myself or any of the other attorneys here. There's a number of firms in town. They're very good firms, but there are also some firms where you're not going to get the chance to talk to a lawyer. We make sure that you have access to lawyers and that we can listen and that we can explain to you what your case may or may not be.
So with premises liability, now there are different types of this type of injury. So can you give me some examples of maybe some things, some examples of premises liability and maybe some examples of cases that Tate Law Group has been a part of?
Examples of these type cases are, for number one, when somebody goes onto a premise and there's a dangerous condition that exists. And that dangerous condition may be what's called a static condition, meaning, and for an example of that would be, you have a staircase that has been failed to be maintained properly. There could be cutouts out of it, and as you're traversing the staircase, you know, the person could trip on that cutout area and then fall down the stairs and then injure themselves. And I think that's a good example of a premise liability case where the owner simply forgot to keep up their premises. Another type of premise liability claim that people often do not understand is when you go onto someone's premise and you are accosted or injured or, you know, either assaulted by a third party. That is a type of premise liability claim. And, you know, you may ask, well, why is the premise owner responsible if another party has assaulted me on their premise? The reason for that is there's often a very detailed history of violence that has occurred on these premise where somebody is in fact assaulted. And you're not going to know that until you contact a lawyer, and a lawyer really who knows what they're doing, and they can get the history of either police calls there, maybe the facility has internal security where you're going to find security reports, maybe there's other witnesses that the same thing has happened to. And, you know, those are really the two main types of premise cases.
To win a premises liability case, do you need a big firm? Do you need a bunch of attorneys? Or can you win a premises liability case with a small firm? I mean, what should you be looking for?
And that's a good question. Absolutely. You do not need a firm with 100, 200 lawyers, something like that. And in fact, you'll find that most firms that represent plaintiffs and individuals are smaller firms. You know, they may have a handful of lawyers and a very good support staff. So no, you absolutely do not need a larger firm, but you need to find a firm that specializes only in representing individuals, as we do here. You'll find some firms out there that do the majority defense work and like to dabble in plaintiff work when they can. And I would advise you to steer away from them because they often represent insurance companies, municipalities, and business owners that you may have a claim against. So And it's just not their bread and butter. I mean, if you call a plaintiff's firm that's dedicated solely to representing individuals, as I've done for my entire career, I think that's their best option.
A question, I'm wondering, would you advise the person calling to actually inquire? Would it be right to inquire how many premises liability cases that attorney or that firm has actually been involved with and won?
Absolutely. I think that's a very good question, is to ask the lawyer who you speak with, have you ever been involved in a premises liability case? Have you ever filed one? How many have you filed? Because just like anything in life, you're going to get better as an attorney the more of these cases that you have. You know what the issues are. You know how to go about securing the evidence. I'd want a doctor that's, if I had to have my heart worked on, that hasn't performed 0 heart surgeries, and I'm his first one. You want a physician that does this every day, and I think that's a very good question that anyone should ask the attorney.
Thanks so much, Jim. It's always great to see you.
You too, Natalie. Thank you so much.
If you'd like more information on Tate Law Group or premises liability, all you have to do is go to the information you see right there on your screen. You can also check out our website. That's WSAV.com.